up YouTube? Today's video we're going to go over something I actually saw before league start that I thought was pretty interesting. I actually had this video queued up to be made for a while now. But basically this is a video about one of the best players in PoE history accomplishing Uber Elder on level 24. And a lot of people are kind of curious about how this was able to be done. Because level 24 Uber Elder in terms of possibility seems like an impossibility because it is absolutely absurd. You would have like absolutely no life. So how are you actually able to even get enough damage when you don't even have access to half of the support gems in the game? And I do think the answer to this question and finding out how he's able to do it will help out a lot of people in finding out why their character does no damage and how exactly damage can be scaled in PoE to absurd levels even at very, very low level. So first off, you might be wondering what exactly is the skill that allows a player to do so much damage while being so low level? And the surprising answer, well, not really surprising, is Stormbrand. Stormbrand has been known as one of the de facto best bossing skills purely because its actual DPS is miles higher than what it actually shows. The main reason behind this is that Stormbrand is very high effective damage, and this is something to note for a lot of builds that have really high damage. Like Lightning Strike, for instance, is pretty bad at bossing because it's a melee until you can just absolutely one-shot the enemy. Because if you can't be attacking the enemy, you actually can't be doing any damage. But Stormbrand allows you to run around, you place these brands down, which are different from EA totems or something like that. Because totems can actually die. It can die to the Shaper Balls, it can die to Degens, it can die to Shaper Beam, or Uber Elder Icicles that he throws out. So Stormbrand, it just stays there. It's untargetable, and it also has this great aspect where it can do a lot more damage when there's multiple enemies. And this is the reason why Stormbrand used to be so good with Hydra Spear before Hydra Spear got nerfed, because it would actually essentially double the damage of the Stormbrand. So Stormbrand can attach to multiple enemies, so you can put down multiple brands, and it sends a chain out that hits nearby enemies. So if you have two Stormbrands that are attached, each attached to an enemy that's near each other, it will both chain or do extra damage, effectively doubling your effective damage. So Stormbrand is amazing for invitations and multi-target fights. Now here we have the fight, as you can see in the bottom right over here, and you will notice that he actually has no HP, and the reason behind that is that Uber Elder is probably one of the best designed fights in PoE history. It's actually kind of a shame how mediocre some of the new fights or new bosses that they've came out with. I'm looking at the Seeding Chime and the Shrek Ogre boss. I like the Polaric Invitation. Searing Exarch and Eater of Worlds are not too bad. Eater of Worlds, in my opinion, is a particularly annoying and bad fight. But main reason why you can do it is because you can dodge every single attack. As you can see here, he is actually pretty much moving at a rhythm, right? Like he's stopping, he's letting the boss, baiting the boss cast out, and then he's walking away. And he just keeps doing this, running around in circles while kiting the degen puddles. Right here, he's making sure to never stay still so he doesn't actually get hit by any of the projectiles that the ads are shooting. And this is some crazy mechanical play. But if you practice this a lot of times, I'm sure some people here will be able to do it, right? But this is something that he's done a lot in the past, so he just has to be very vigilant. And the fight is not really that long. Like, he doesn't need to play perfectly for like an hour, as you might expect for someone who's level 24. He's just doing it, and he's doing pretty high boss damage, which leads to the question, what exactly could he potentially be wearing? And what does that sound? Do I actually have someone wanting to trade me? But he used to do these runs of a metronome. He actually uploaded some footage in the past where he had a metronome ticking that he would use to dictate when he should move. And it's pretty cool. It's kind of like people who do like speed runs of like Dark Souls or something, doing no-hit runs. And this is pretty much what the greatest PoE boss design looks like, because you're actually able to mechanically outplay everything rather than it just being a pure gear check like Fear or a DPS check, where if you don't meet the DPS check or gear check, you're instantly just dead. And this is very akin in PoE to how people did ZHP builds for Delvey and still did all of the Delve bosses like Ol and Krugel. And it's pretty much the exact same thing, except the nice thing here is that he's actually just so low level. So there's some crazy part about his build. And look at that mechanics for dodging everything. It's so beautiful, right? Wow, Shaper Slam is tiny compared to Uber Shaper. I actually did Uber Shaper yesterday, and man, the Shaper Slam is huge. But very, very cool to see. But the reason he's able to take no damage is definitely because he's good. And Uber Elder is a good, well-designed boss fight. Now, the main issue is how is he able to get so much damage? And even though you're level 24, you're not really level 24. And that's something that is something I didn't actually know about before. And the reason why, if you're level 24, you're not really level 24 is because this thing exists called Book of Regression, which reduces your character level by 1 and resets your experience for that level to 0. So you can pretty much de-level your character from level 100 to level 24 while having all of the labs done and also having all of your passive skill points. So that is actually how he's able to be level 24 and still have so much damage. Now he's scaling flat damage because all of PoE is about how much flat damage you have, and if you're a crit build, how much crit chance and crit multi you have, and you just multiply those numbers together, and that's how you get your damage. And then you have to factor in the boss's resists and defenses. So you're scaling your flat damage, and you get flat damage through your Watcher side, which we'll see, your wand, your rings, and you can get it on jewels. And he's abusing Secrets of Suffering to potentially reach crit cap. And Secrets of Suffering also applies Scorch, which applies Pen, but that actually doesn't do anything because I'm pretty sure he's an Inquisitor. And Secrets of Suffering is an item that you can use very low level. Now, Inquisitor is very important because you don't actually get that much pen early on, especially if you're only level 24 in terms of gem and gear. So being an Inquisitor allows him to ignore boss resistance, and boss resistance is the main thing. So Inquisitor is super, super strong early on for bossing. I know nowadays is not as popular of a choice purely because you don't actually Inquisitor's not as popular because Omniscience exists. But you can see here, this note helps out a lot in damage, especially for making it more consistent. And like I said, even though he's level 24, he can use the Book of Regression and have all of his passive points. And as you can see here, he's low life and he has Corrupting Fever on left click. Using Corrupting Fever on left click allows him to constantly drain his HP. And since he doesn't really care how much damage he's taking, he can get Pain Attunement. And Pain Attunement, when he's on low life, is 30% more damage boost, which actually ends up being huge for actually giving him a huge chunk of damage. So that's where all his damage sources come from. Lots of flat on his gear, Secret Suffering to get really high crit, Inquisitor to ignore the boss's resist, and low life by using Corrupting Fever, and he also has all of his passive skill points. So now we can see the gem links he's using. Now, the one thing I'm really confused about here is this link here, which is Control Destruction. In the pub I have of a mock-up, it seems like Control Destruction would just be bad in almost every scenario, unless you have 15 brittle. If you have 15 brittle, but he doesn't really have 15 brittle in the video. So you have Stormbrand here, and you can see Control Destruction is actually a damage loss. So I'm not really sure why he's using it, because if you're a crit build, it is very almost impossible to run Control Destruction. But maybe he's just using it and I'm missing something completely. Because if you look at the actual links of his skill, he has Stormbrand, Power Charge on crit, Onslaught, Conk Effect, Control Destruction, Cruelty. And then he's using Frenzy, additional accuracy, faster attacks to build Frenzy charges. And he has Flame Dash, Brand Recall, Enhanced to dodge abilities and move the brands around. Not really sure why he has Convocation, but he has Assassin's Mark, which he just casts once and it should stay on for the entire fight and is linked to Empower and Enhance. And for his auras, he has Arcane Cloak, Corrupting Fever, Hatred, and Summon Skitterbot. So these are pretty much used to give him buffs. And the reason why you want these buffs for Arcane Cloak and Corrupting Fever is it actually allows you to get flat damage on Mantra of Flames, and that's how he's able to apply the fire damage for Scorched. Now, this gear is not really 100% known because he skin transfer a bunch of stuff, but this is just what people conjecture and what I thought was most likely the case, right? But of course, you can use different gear, but in the end, it's all the same concept in that he abuses the fact that Stormbrand's an amazing boss ability, and you can get so much flat even on low level gear. So you can see here, Mantra of Flames, low level 20 requirement, gives you a bunch of fire spell damage per buff on you, and he can stack fire spell damage with these Arcane Cloak, Corrupting Fever, and stuff like that. And the main thing is you can use these Tollborn wands at level 24. And the reason why these wands are kind of cool is because they grant you a lot of flat cold. So you can see here you get 10 to 20 flat cold per power charge. So you can actually stack power charges and get a lot of flat cold damage. And you can also use Replica Thessalio's Sign, which gives you 15 to 25 or 20 to 35 cold damage to spells and attacks. And it also gives you 80 to 60 to 80 cold damage against chilled enemies. And the enemies pretty much will always be chilled because he's running Summon Skitter bots. And Skin of the Lord is probably used to get Eldritch Battery or some Keystone. And it's also a pretty good chest for damage in the sense that it still gives you +2. And he could have also used Crown of Thorns for Pain Attunement instead of specking it on the tree. Not really sure about the helmet choice. Face Breakers is probably known because someone said that there was extra gore effect, and there's really no other way to get extra gore effect without using Face Breakers, and by skin transferring, you can't really hide it. Now, Watcher's Eye is almost inevitable that he's using a Hatred Cold Damage Watcher's Eye. So, Hatred Cold Damage Watcher's Eye is something that would get you a lot of damage, in that you will have a lot of flat cold. So, I actually just put in some flat cold Watcher's Eye and Hatred Crit Chance Watcher's Eye. And Mountain of Flames, of course, is where all the flat fire damage comes from. Now, overall, you can see here in the pop, it's somewhere around, if you take off this gem link actually and put in like faster casting, which I don't think he's actually using, but you can see here, faster casting, he has 409k DPS, and you can pretty much multiply this by 2, and it would probably be around 1 million uptime DPS, which is more than enough to kill the boss, especially with a skill as good as Stormbrand for bossing. Now, you can see he has no life, 406 life, 439 mana, level 24. All the skill gems are low level, so there's nothing really crazy. But you can see here, the damage is still so high at level 24, purely because you can take every single node on the tree for damage, as you don't need any life at all. You can take all the brand nodes and things like that. But obviously, this tree is a very rough mock-up. He probably didn't really fully optimize it like this way, because I know he has less power charges in the video, because I think he only had, if you watch here in the fight, he only had around 3 or 4 power charges. So yeah, he has 4 power charges, so he does not actually take every single power charge node on the tree. So not really sure exactly how many passive points he has. This is probably something that he would have to tell us, but interesting to see how you can come up with such high DPS by just scaling flat damage. So that's why these rings are actually so good for leveling. So if you're trying to do a Twink run with Frost Blades, you can get a lot of damage with the, what's it called, with these rings, because that's an insane amount of flat cold damage. And you also could get double implicit, so I just put some crazy double implicit corruptions on these, so cast speed and more flat damage. It's all about scaling flat damage, increasing your crit multi, and using Secrets of Suffering to get your crit chance as high as possible. And I wonder if it's possible to go below level 24. The main reason I don't think it's really that feasible is because Hatred is auras are level 24 requirement, a lot of them. And the nice part is, will he actually attempt an uber elder fight with a level 24 character? And I do think maybe the uber elder fight is doable. Not 100% sure, but it'll be interesting to see if he ever spoils us with another crazy attempt. But thanks for watching, everyone. I hope this video was pretty enlightening and you found it interesting. But I hope you find more mirrors, exalts, and mage bloods to me, and see you next time. Bye.